privileged to still be alive, approaching 81 years of age. You see, in 1952, I started as a freshman at Howard University, having graduated from high school as a valedictorian in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, where Alex Haley wrote from Salt. But I had not even had geometry, and my English wasn't up to par. My only accomplishment in my first semester was 11 hours of college credits, because 6 of it was high school remedial courses. But I had the power to overcome. I had the passion and commitment, so I went to the dean and urged him, pled with him, cried with him to let me take 23 hours so I could be equal with my classmates. He said, young boy, you've got a lot of guts and a lot of courage. I said, I know I can do it. I took 23 hours, made straight A's, ended up ended up number one in my class, ended up with my civil rights journey. A journey that will make history for you today. Because as a result of being number one in my class, I became the spokesperson for Howard University, a historic black college and university, protested segregation in America in 1953, before Brown was assigned. And I, on Out of Place Power program every Saturday, say that a person should be judged by the quality of his performance. And I'm going to be quite frank with you, ladies. We weren't as sensitive then to women's rights as we were just dealing with black-white, the Negro-white problem. And I say, when you go out to buy a car, you should, in fact, determine how well it's going to perform. Why can't you do that about people? I coined the phrase that a person should be judged by the quality of his performance, not by the accident of his birth and the color of his skin. Okay, May 17, 1954, Earl Warren got denied justice of the Supreme Court that agreed with me. I thought that I enrolled in the civil rights movement was over. But then October 54 came, and I was a junior in college. James Neighbor, who had been chief counsel in Jockey Bowling, invited me to his office, and I thought it was because I was an activist on the campus. I was president of the Transatlantic Council, the Foreign Students Association, and a number of other organizations. But he said, Arthur, I want to talk to you about your personal circumstances. You came here from Virginia. You are our ready-made plaintiff. We want you to become the first Negro or colored person the NAACP will use to compel the South to comply with the Brown decision. We want you in your junior year because you're a straight, almost 4-point student. You're the best we have. We want you to apply to the University of Virginia Law School in your junior year to desegregate University of Virginia. This is October 54. And I kind of gritted my teeth before I heard that if you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. But I said, I can't turn back now. I was 19 years of age. And they said, it may face death. But by the way, this gentleman here sitting on the side, this is Thurgood Marshall. He will be your chief counsel. And we will do everything to keep you alive. But we are planning on going into federal court in Richmond, Virginia, or Alexandria, Virginia, and get a mandatory injunction to compel the University of Virginia to admit you. But we want you first to admit to those law schools in the top 10 in the nation. They admit you after your third year in law school. I applied to Columbia, NYU, Syracuse, and Boston. First communication I got from them, you are at the University of Virginia Stonewall. And they said, we got it where we want it. We got the best law schools in the country that would admit you at the end of your junior year, the 6-year combination program. Virginia wanted to acknowledge your application. And so they then started talking with the Attorney General of the United States, and on my case with Columbia. They would have 2 marshals assigned to me to live with me 24 hours a day because you see Ku Klux Klan at that point. And threatened to kidnap and lynch me. And from January through April of 1955, I lived under that death threat. But I went home in November and told my parents I wasn't going to law school at Howard. They thought I'd given up my dream, my vision. But I said, no, I've been selected to be the lead plaintiff in the Commonwealth of Virginia to break the back of massive resistance. But it may be dead, you may lose your job. It may mean, Mom, that our house will be firebombed. There are red crosses in our yard, but it may mean that you might be raised in the rain. They say, son, we knew God gave you a gift. You've always been a straight A student here from elementary on. Just what we you and the other Negro kid, boy, you listen to Thurgood Marshall, James Neighbor, and no more two crazy Negroes. And with that, I was prepared to die for the cause of desegregation. You open the door to see this fine room today of future lawyers in America. I may be alive today only because of Governor Wallace. March and April, Wallace started talking about closing all the other schools in Arkansas. And in April, Navy told me the NACP, unfortunately, did not have enough money to afford both in Virginia and in Arkansas. In Arkansas, it was expected closing the entire school system. And they settled my case with Virginia. Virginia agreed to send me to any law school that I wanted to go to, other than Virginia. And my choice was Columbia. But NYU made me an offer that was irresistible. In addition, Virginia paid all my expenses. NYU offered to make me a faculty scholar and made me a teaching assistant at 20-year-old youngster entering law school in the Masters of Law program with Evansville, Burnett, who was considered #1 and #2 medical malpractice in America. And I went to NYU, considered Columbia, because I basically had the equivalent of 2 full scholarships to be the teaching assistant with one of the leading experts in the nation in medical malpractice. And I was the only Negro or person of color in my class. 50% of the time I got called. But Thurgood had said to Arthur, I want you as a little colored boy from Spotsylvania, Virginia. Show that you could be as brilliant as any Jewish kid. I said, Thurgood, I will not let you down. Our first year, this little colored boy, the only colored boy, made the highest grade in Wills. By the end of my second year, I was number 11 in my class out of 300 students. Associate editor of research of the Law Review, president of the Butler Law Club at Howard at NYU. And I had gone to law school with the idea of going into military service because of Truman's executive order and merit system there. But they persuaded me to apply to the Department of Justice. And I, again, would take history. How many of you have seen the movie called The Butler? Well, after 2 years military service, on January 21, 1961, I was called to see a gentleman named Robert F. Kennedy. And he told me that he had checked my background. He wanted me to be his confidential assistant to monitor all the criminal cases in America. Then he dropped the bombshell. He said, that's your cover. But your real job will be most sensitive job we have in America. You see, we just recovered from the McCarthy era. We still had the Cold War and the communism. And we had Martin Luther King. We had the Civil Rights Movement in the firehouse. He said, we want you to be our inside man of the Kennedy administration to monitor the Martin Luther King movement. Make sure the Communist Party would not get infiltrated, start a second civil war in this country, cause disorder in this country. We want you to be our eyes and ears. Jack LaHoo will know that you are our reader. It is your duty to read all reports and make everything that I and the President of the United States need to know about those issues. see, I was the eyes and ears of the Kennedy administration for 3.5 years. I could not even tell my wife. Well, it's only been within the past 3 years that Barack Obama administration has permitted me to even tell you this. But I was a secret inside agent and monitoring Martin Luther King movement. And in August of '63, when Martin came to Washington, I was the undercover plan to make sure they would not cause riots. What Martin was there demonstrating for jobs, freedom, and justice. I was the eyes of the president. Okay. I look back and I wonder how I lived for those 3.5 years. Right? I didn't speak a word to my wife. Or tell anybody. I can only speak with the president. If Kennedy, with the white free on the Supreme Court, and after that was being cast back. Until 3 years ago, my lips were sealed. I'm still in the bottom of the television classified information. I would like to inspire all. I probably know more about the Martin Luther King than Jesse Jackson or John Lewis. But that was not the end of my civil rights journey. Bobby left to go to New York, or go to become senator for New York. I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had a kind of quiet 2.5, 3 years. And then Martin gets assassinated. I get appointed as a lawyer over the police operations in D.C. and recovered from the riots and burnings. 14th Street Carter, 8th Street Northeast, to make sure the police complied with the dictates of the U.S. Supreme Court did not engage in police brutality violations. And I stayed there 35 years, and then Congress passed the Magistrates Act, and believe it or not, the judges on the federal court were so impressed with my performance that I became the first African-American United States magistrate, now called magistrate judge in the history of the nation, at age 34. But then, again, like this, and I was assigned to Judge John Solicitor to handle work with him handling the Watergate cases, and then Richard Nixon's resignation of the face impeachment. I tell you all that because as a young country boy, even a young boy thinking I never dreamed that I would be vacuum cleaned, I say, sucked into these historic moments of America. And that was the first 10 years of my career. I could go on for another hour or two, but I don't want to take up time to another time. I tell you that because where you sit today, you know not where you may go. I will tell you one thing of importance. I ended up serving as a United States magistrate for 6 years and an 8-year term. In the beginning of my 8th year, I was faced with a challenge. I could continue to stay as a magistrate judge. I guess at that point, at 40 years of age. But I was recruited to become the chief lawyer for the entire executive branch of government civil service system. To be the lawyer that told the civil service what they had to do to comply with the merit system with equal employment for the entire executive branch of government. No Negro had ever held that job before. And I figured at 40 years of age, I was young enough to leave the judiciary and take on this job under one condition that I told them I would only leave. They treated me like I was a federal district court judge. I would not play politics. I was kind of like any decision I gave, I would be satisfied that we got to the U.S. Supreme Court. 5 justices of the Supreme Court would agree with me. And they said, we agree to that, and we will have you act as if you were a federal district court judge. And we will not ask you to bend the law to accomplish any political. Then a man named Jimmy Carter is elected as president. And I get detailed to be his chief legislative counsel. I'm the lawyer that helped set up the U.S. Department of Education. I'm the lawyer. I'm the lawyer that ended up abolishing the Civil Service Commission and creating the Office of Personnel Management. Fair Citizen Protection Board, the Federal Labor Relations Authority, also special counsel. I worked in the White House, and I thought in my life had gone, like from the law cabinet to the White House, never thought I would see a black president. I felt that I was in the White House, and the chief legislative counsel that dealt with both black and white members of Congress on all matters dealing with the federal government. Most of that was Congress, but I was advisor from Georgia. From here, that I had been advisor to Governor Carter, but no, I had to come up to the right. I told you, but Carter got defeated, and I went back to the bench, and I won't go into the rest of it, but I tell you that to tell you that you can come from humble background, and you can end up places you never dreamed you need. You can end up and you do your best every day. And by way of attending law school, remember that law school is not a memorization process. It is a process of critical analytical thinking of how the law serves the needs of humanity and of the people that the law is supposed to serve. I've always approached it with that. And now I'm going to conclude with probably dropping the bombshell. I've been asked by the Episcopal Church of America to head a national commission to eliminate all the remaining vestiges of disparate treatment and unlawful discrimination in the public sectors of America. That decision as to the national operation should be made in November. I've already created a commission of 25 prominent constitutional scholars in America. I've created an advisory commission, a committee of senior advisors, with an additional 20 who will add 5 more. But we are planning to involve youth, the future generation of America, with a separate advisory committee of people under 30, to let you have a say in what we will recommend to the Congress and to the President of the United States in 2018, the Civil Rights 2018, to finish the unfinished business of Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King combined. You see, our headquarters at Howard University. He and Holly Walker was here this morning. I'm her assistant to care for the legend, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King. She's given me permission to use every faculty member in the law school, to advise every member of Congress, every state legislator, what we need to do to achieve the dream of Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King, where we achieve equality, and to the extent we can eliminate human bias and prejudice to make this country what it ought to be. We're talking about even constitutional amendments, maybe to abolish the 13th Amendment, so that involuntary servitude even in prison should apply. The people who go to prison should at least get minimum wage. They should be able to support their children so we don't put them in foster care and we fragment families. By the 13th Amendment, let's eliminate slavery altogether. We're talking about the global economy where we live in a world where computers and technology and science, STEM field, is becoming the predominant field. That we no longer can leave education in the hands of school districts and local states and counties. Should we have a constitutional amendment where education is a federal right, where every kid gets the same quality of education, whether he lives in the ghetto, in the hood, or whether he lives in the gated community? We're looking at that possibility. We're looking at whether or not stock and frisk was manufactured by Congress, by Justice of the Supreme Court. I follow to think about it. Do we need that with the abuses that come to police, or should we rewrite the Fourth Amendment? And what about gun control and violence? We no longer live in a agrarian society where we have to fight Indians. We never should have fought them. We don't need to kill buffaloes for all of this survive. We live in a highly urbanized society. NRA sometimes has more power than money, but his life more valuable than money. What about the life of innocent victims, sometimes because of gun violence? England only had two people killed We have had more people killed by gun violence in this country than have been killed in all the wars we participate in. Can we mobilize the grassroots to change gun control and violence in this nation? I serve on the advisory committee as the chair of a grant from NIH, grant to Howard, to deal with how we control and deal with solving the problem of violence in the black community. My only prayer and my only desire is I wish I was 60 instead of 80 when I'm 81. I serve as an advisor to the Obama administration. The National Bar Association created the National African American Drug Policy Coalition to deal with some of the problems of overcriminalization and how we deal with mandatory sentences, to restore judicial discretion, to repose sentences longer than any other nation on the face of the world. The organization I head as the CEO has its primary purpose: eliminate disparate treatment in health care, especially substance abuse and mental health, and reform the criminal justice and juvenile justice system of America. Unfortunately, my task usually take up 80 or 90 hours a week. It's kind of hard to sit here and see young people like you and maybe get a little rest and recuperation. But when I'm back in Washington, I want to go 80, 90 hours a week with all the organizations and with all the roles that I have. They say there's a glut on the market of lawyers. There's a glut on the market of rich lawyers and for rich corporations. But ordinary people under $100,000 a year income, they can't get lawyers. We need people like you to protect the middle class and the poor in this country. We need to eliminate poverty in this country. So we've got a lot of work to do. I welcome you to the challenge.